Hey everybody, welcome back once again. Okay, so this is going to be a continuation of our number cruncher assignment. I realize I didn't go back. I apologize for not putting in another video on that. So we're going to be looking at number cruncher today and a couple of the extra things that we add in. So we got down to the average and we did the sum. So let's do the rest of these. So first off, we want to write a custom snap predicate block called includes negative that takes a list as an argument and reports true if the list contains at least one negative number and false if they are all non-negative numbers. Okay, so going back to our snap, we're going to be making a custom block. Let's go ahead and put it under variables. Seems like a good place to do it. So we're going to make our block and we are going to call it includes negative. And that's going to be our block, and we wanted it to be a predicate block. So we're going to make it a predicate block, and so it's going to report true or false. And we're going to click OK. And then it's going to give us our options here. So I'm going to need two of these reports because I'm going to need a report true and a report false. So let's see if I can grab true and false from my operators. So I've got a true. And I've got another true, which I'm just going to click and make it a false. I'm going to make this a little bigger so we can see what's going on. There we go. All right, so let me drag those reports off over here because we're going to need them a little bit later. So what I want to do is traverse this list and check every number and make sure that it either has a negative or it doesn't. So once I find a negative, I know I can just report true. If I never find a negative, I have to report false. So let's add an area for a list to go into. And so if I click that plus, we get this little box, which I need a little more. So I clicked the arrow next to input name, and we are going to find a list to put in there, and we're going to call this, let's just call it list. Make things easy. And call it list and click OK. All right, so we've called it list, and it's going to be our list that we put in. Does it include a negative? So I want to set up a few things, and we're going to set up a couple variables here. Let's see, at least one. We're going to set up a script variable, and we're going to call it our index. So there we go. And then we're going to set that index to 1 to start. So we start at the beginning of the list. Set index to 1. And then we're going to do this for a while. So under control, we're going to set how long we're going to do this for. So we're going to continue this for the length of our list that we just got there. So we're going to repeat it for length of, which is under variables. And then I'm going to drag down the list, which I put in up here. So repeat for length of list. So whatever list I put in, I'm going to repeat it for the whole length. And then I need an if and an else. So an if else. So grab this if. Boop. So first thing is if my number is less than 0, I want it to report true. Because once I find one negative number, I don't have to check the rest of them. So if my number index, so item index, if item index of the list that we put in the beginning is less than, which I'm going to find in operators, less than 0. So if item index of list is less than 0, then we are going to report true. Else, that means it's greater than 0. We are just going to change index by 1. So we're going to go to our variables and find change, there it is, index by 1. Cool. Now what happens if none of them are negative? Well, at the very end here, we're going to report false. Now it can't report both, so at the end, if it reports true, it's done. and it won't move on to false. If it reports false, if it never reports true, it will report false. Okay, we're going to click apply, and we're going to try this one out. So, includes negative, whoop. So this one here is just list. I actually don't need that as a list, it's already a list. Whoop. Numbers 1 to 10. This is a special little block over here that you can use for just numbers. So there's not going to be any negatives here, so it should report false. It reports false. Now this is a little list that I made that does have a negative in it. It should report true. True. Yay. Okay, so we got our includes negative block, and that one's all done. Now let's move on to the next part of this. And we're going to go with increasing question mark. So we're going to write a custom predicate block again that says it's true if it is an increasing number is greater than or equal to the one before it. Okay, so it's going to report true if it's increasing, and it's going to report false if it is not increasing. So we need to figure out how to do that. Let's go back to our little list here, and we're going to start by just making it a custom block. So I'm going to make a new block, and we're going to call it increasing question mark. So is it going up? And we're going to make it a predicate, either true, false. And then we are going to click OK. And now we get to actually go through. Pardon me. So we're going to again report true or false. So we're going to do that eventually. But right now, we are going to set things up. So increasing, we also need to be able to put in a list. So if I click that plus, I get this. Again, click the arrow and click the list. And I got to call it something. We're just going to call it list. Again, simplicity. And then I got to pull it up a little bit and click OK. All right, so increasing list. So I'm going to put in a list and see if it is increasing. I think we're going to have to put in a few variables again. So let's start with a nice little script variable. And we're going to go with, whoops, what have I done? Let's see. There we go. So we are just going to go with a script variable, and we're going to call it index. Okay. So I've got my index, and we're going to go through. So we're going to first set index to 1 to start everything off. And then we are going to continue this for the length of list, just like last time. Repeat. Length of, and then I grab the list from up here. So repeat for length of list. Now, actually, let's see, I want to do it. So since the first one in the list is going to be the lowest, I don't have anything to compare it to. So instead of having index set as 1, I'm actually going to change my index to be 2. So I'm going to start with the second thing in the list. And then I don't want to repeat it for the entire length of the list. I want it to repeat for the length of list minus that 1 in the beginning. So this way I am not comparing anything to the very first number. I'm just comparing the second one to the one before it. So I need an if else block again. So under control, I've got if else. So if, and then operators, item, index of list. So let's see. Sorry about that. Item index of list. Where am I finding this? Oh, there it is. Item. So if item index of list is now what I'm going to do for this one is the greater than. So this is going to be my report false up here. So if item index of list is greater than, nope, is less than item index minus 1, so 1 less than the index, I know this is a little confusing. Whoop. Of list then we will report false. Okay, I know that might get a little bit confusing, so let me explain why I decided to do it that way. So what I want to do here is report false if ever it's out of order, if it's out of order at any point. So as soon as it's out of order, I know it's not an increasing amount. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I've got item index of list if it's less than the one that came before it. So item index minus 1 of list, we are going to report that false. Else, so again, if it is not less than the item before it, if it's either equal to or greater than, then we are going to change our index by 1. So I want to change my index by 1. Boop. When you get into some actual programming language, you don't have to go hunting for all the blocks. That's a little bit easier, but you do have to remember what the blocks, how to type them out. So then we're going to change our index by 1. And if we make it all the way to the end without having any reports false, we will report it as true. So let's see if this works. I think this is a finished block, but I'm not 100% sure. So let's click apply, and we will test it with the blocks that we have. Click OK. All right, so increasing, question mark. Whoop. Now, let's try it with one that we know to be not true. So this one is definitely not an increasing list. So I'm going to click this. It should report false. It reports false immediately. So let's try it with our yes, it's increasing list here because I've got 1 to 10. Whoop, true. Yay, it works. All right. So we've got our sum, we've got our average, we've got includes negative, and we've got increasing. Let me do one more in this video. I know these videos get a little long. So let me just do one more here and we'll go from there. So we did includes a negative, we did increasing. Now let's do our maximum. This one's a little bit harder. For the maximum one, we just want to report whichever one is the largest in the list. So we want to write a custom snap reporter block called maximum, where it takes a list as an argument and reports the largest number of the list. This one is a little bit confusing, but it's not too bad. We just add a little bit to it. So I want to make a new block. This one's going to be a reporter instead of a predicate. And we're going to do max. Wow, there we go. Max for all sprites. Okay, so it's going to take, again, a list as an argument. So I have to push that plus. I have to bring out that arrow. I got to pick list. Got to drag everything up and click OK. Oh, I forgot to name it. Whoop. Bring it in. Make it a list. Name it list. Again, you can name these things a little bit more specific. A lot of programmers like to make sure these are all specific. Since this list only applies to this one block that I'm making, I'm not bothering making it a more specific list. So we've got our list, and we click OK. Yay. So I've got a list. Now when I report, I'm going to report whatever my maximum is. So I want to create a couple variables for this one. I've only been creating the initial variable. Let's see, script variable. The index. Now I also want to create another variable. So I've got my script variable. We're going to call this first one index. Cool. And then we want to set index to, let's see, set, there it is. Got to keep looking for these blocks. Set index to, and I think it's 1. It's probably actually going to be 2. I'll come back to that. It's probably going to be 2 because I think we'll skip the first one again. So our next script variable, we want to have it as max. Max. Okay. Now I want to set my max to item 1 of the list. So I want to set my max to be whatever the first item in the list is, and then I'm going to start my index at 2. Again, I don't have anything to compare the first number to, so I don't need to start it with 1. So I'm going to set my index to 2. It'll start with 2, and then my max is just going to be set to whatever the first number in that list is. So then I might need to change my max as I go along. We're going to do some repeating. Again, I need a control. And we're going to repeat it for, and I think we'll go with, again, the length of list minus 1, because again, we don't have to check that first one. So for length of list minus 1. If we go back, we've got length in here somewhere. Length of, yes. List, and then I need a minus, which I'm going to find in my operators. Length of list minus 1. Again, I don't need to check that first one, so it's length of list minus 1. And then I need my if else again. Whoop. Control. Where is my if else? There it is. If else. So now let's decide what's going on. So if the number that I'm on, item index of list, is greater than my max, I want to change my max to whatever the item index of list is. If it's not, I want to just move on. Okay, so if, and then we go to variables, item index got to drag index over, of my list is greater than, that's going to be in operators, my max. So again, max was set as the first item in the list. So if item index of list is greater than max, we then need to change what the max is. So if the first number is not the highest, we need to change max. So then we need to set max, set max to item index of list. I just duplicated from there. You can do item index of list if you want. So we need to set that to the next one. Now, what I'm going to do is after that, I still need to change my index by 1 because I want to move on and see the third thing might be higher. So I need to change index by 1. And then if I have an else, so if my number before is not higher than my max, I just want to change my index by 1, move on to the next thing in the list. I don't want to change my max at that point. And then finally at the very end, I want to report my max. Okay, so this looks pretty darn finished. Again, I might have messed it up, but we'll see. Let's click apply, and we'll click OK. And we're going to grab that nice, fun max block that we have here, max, and I'm going to drag my new list into that. Let's see what happens. So the highest number here is 94. So if I click this, it should report 94, which is the first number in the list, so that means that nothing will change to it. 94, it does. So let's see this time. Now, I either messed this up royally or did a good job. So if it reports 1, I messed it up royally. If it reports 10, I did a good job. Let's see if it reports 10. It does report 10, so that means that max block is doing what it's supposed to. Okay, that's the end of this video. I know it's 20 minutes long. Sorry about that. I will do one more video for this one. I'll try to make it a little bit shorter. It's for the transforming, just these two here. We're going to make them all positive or report only even. So we're just making a new list with those other ones. So there's that. And keep working. You're doing a great job, and I will talk to you later. Bye.